welcome back to my channel. I'm Sally and this is my channel Secret Life of a Seamstress, where I talk all about sewing and other crafts as well. Thanks so much for joining me today and I hope you're all doing really well. So today's video is going to be a makes video and I'm going to be sharing with you everything I've been making over the last few weeks and even months. So I have quite a few things to share. I don't feel as though I've done a makes video for a while, so I've got quite a few sort of bigger projects that I've managed to finish that I'm going to be sharing today. So I just want to say, please don't think that I have made all of these things within the last month. I don't really do monthly makes videos in the same way anymore, so a lot of these things I have been working on for a good few weeks, and if not weeks then probably months. So yeah, I've got a few different things to share today, some sewing things, some knitting things and some crochet as well, so quite a nice little variety. So this could actually end up being quite a long video and I'm just going to get straight into it. So first of all, I will share with you what I'm wearing. So what I'm wearing today is actually something that I've finished up that has been in my sewing basket for so very long. And you will recognise it if you watched my video from last week, because it was a work in progress that I finally got out and just forced myself to get on with. I'm wearing the NYX blouse by Closet Core Patterns. And this is the pattern. If you haven't seen it before, I will pop the line drawings in as well if you haven't seen it or you're not familiar with the design. So I think probably the most popular version of the NYX pattern is probably this maxi dress here. It's such a lovely dress. So it's a really sort of boho style dress. It has a V-neck, it buttons at the front here with some rouleau loops, and then you can make this big billowy skirt and big puffy sleeves. But it does have a couple of other versions to it as well. So you can make version B, which is a nice floaty peplum style top, or you can make version C, which is possibly the sort of lesser known version of the pattern, I'll say. So version C is a lovely plainer version. It has a V-neck which is faced, and it also has a back yoke as well. And the shoulders and the sleeves are kind of nicely gathered at the top here, so it's still really pretty even though it does have that sort of more plain feel to it. So I made my version today from a remnant that I had of Art Gallery rayon. So I actually found this little remnant in my fabric stash when I was having a clear out over the summer, and I had just under a metre I think of it, but it was kind of you know, not a straight metre. I'd already cut something out of this fabric, so it was kind of the remains of that. But anyway, I managed to squeeze a version C of this pattern out of it, and I'm so glad I managed to do that. I did have to cut the sleeves short, obviously, because there was no way I was going to get those big puffy sleeves out of a metre of fabric, but it worked really nicely just having short sleeves too. But yeah, I did enjoy sewing this up in the end. I don't know what was wrong with me with this blouse. I cut it out at the end of the summer holidays, I think, and then I kind of sewed a bit here and there, and then I just left it. And it wasn't really inspiring me to get on with it at all, and it might have been because we were at that sort of change in seasons where we were coming into September, and I was thinking more about autumn and winter makes and things like that I wanted to sew. I think at the back of my mind I was probably thinking I'm probably not going to wear that a lot now because we were already sort of coming into September. But yeah, it's very unlike me to do that actually. I normally like to finish a project before I kind of get started on anything else, but with this one I didn't, so it was really good last week to just sit down and get this done, and yeah, I'm really pleased with it. A few people have said to me, is the NYX blouse oversized? And yes, it is. I always make the size 0, which is the smallest size. So I'm actually a bust 32 and the size 0 is actually sized a bust 31. So I was kind of sizing down, but I always tend to look at the finished garment measurements before I ever select my size these days, because it gives you much more information about how the garment is going to turn out and how it's going to fit you. If you look at the finished garment measurements for this blouse, it actually finishes at a 44-inch bust, even at a size 0, so there is an awful lot of ease in this pattern. So if you are planning to make this pattern in any of these versions, then do check the finished garment measurements, because as I say, you probably want to go on those rather than your actual body measurements. So yeah, I made a size 0. I have heard of people sizing down as much as 2 sizes for this pattern because of the ease that you do get in the finished garment. I've made the dress version of this pattern as well, and I do find it quite low actually at the front. It's okay to wear, but I think if I do make the dress again, I'm going to have a look at maybe raising the V-neck I think it fits okay everywhere else, but it's definitely one where if you wear something underneath it, and I do tend to wear like a slip or a camisole or something like that, then it does tend to sort of flop down and show that, which is quite annoying. So I'd really like to raise the V-neck next time I make this. But yeah, such a lovely pattern, and I'm really pleased to have made another of the versions on this one, and I'd really like to at some point make version B as well, because I think that's also really pretty. Might need to leave that to the summertime now though. By the way, I should have said at the beginning that I'm going to do these makes in order of what they are. So I'm going to do sewing first, then I'll move on to knitting, and then I'll do crochet at the end. The second thing that I've been sewing recently is another Agnes top by Tilly and the Buttons. So I'm not going to show you the Agnes top again. I've shown it so much on this channel, and I'm sure you've probably all seen it before, but the Agnes tee by Tilly and the Buttons is one of my favourite t-shirt patterns. I've kind of been back and forth with it a little bit. I liked the fitted style of it initially, then I kind of went off it and found it a bit too fitted. Now I've kind of come back to it as a fitted top because I really enjoy wearing it underneath things like cardigans and shirts and things like that. I do feel a little self-conscious sometimes wearing Agnes t-shirts on their own. But yeah, as a sort of fitted underneath t-shirt, or even something that you can just wear under a jumper or whatever in the winter, it's a really good pattern to have. I did experiment with actually straightening the sides of the Agnes as well, and that worked really well, and I made an Agnes t-shirt in a more drapey fabric, and yeah, it worked really nicely. I think what I like about this pattern is the wide sort of scoop neck on it. It just feels really comfortable, and I always find it really easy to sew. So yeah, I had in my fabric stash this nice stripy rib knit fabric, which I picked up from John Lewis for £5 a metre. So I just bought a metre of this fabric, and I sewed up this short sleeve t-shirt. So I actually had originally intended to make a long sleeve version of this, but when it came to it, I just didn't have enough fabric. I don't know what I was thinking. I think you always need more than a metre for a long sleeve t-shirt. So yeah, I didn't have enough for that, so I ended up just making a short sleeve one, which is absolutely fine because for £5 I think that's really good for a t-shirt. So yeah, nice and basic, something that I can wear under things for the winter. I love the stripes. Stripes are my absolute favourite for t-shirts, as you probably already know. And as I mentioned, I think a few videos ago, it's quite funny because my daughter has got a t-shirt like this from H&M that she wears all the time. It's quite a cropped one that she wears, but yeah, we can actually twin in this, and it would be quite funny to do that. I think she probably wouldn't think it would be funny, but I would. So yeah, really pleased to have that made, and I made that last week in last week's video as well, and I challenged myself to see how long it would actually take me to sew up that Agnes t-shirt, and it actually took me just over an hour, I think, from cutting to finish to get it done. And I really enjoyed doing that challenge because it just made me realise sometimes that actually you can get these sort of small pockets of time where you can whip up something nice and easy and just get it done. And it was really nice to do that because I'd had this fabric in my stash for quite a while and I really wanted to get this t-shirt done. So let's move on then to the biggest make of the last few weeks, and that is that I finally finished my coat. Well, I say finally, it didn't actually take me that long in the end. It took me just under 2 weeks to get the whole thing done from cutting out to finish, which I don't think is too bad for a coat actually, especially because I didn't rush at all. I just completely enjoyed the process and just kind of really enjoyed it, and I didn't rush at all. So just a quick reminder, I know you've probably seen this before if you watch my videos regularly, but this is the coat that I've been making. It's Simplicity 8796. So this is a sort of traditional style coat. It comes in quite a lot of different options. You can have it with a side tying belt, you can have it just with a button, or you can have it really long with sort of a belt here and some nice patch pockets. So I've been eyeing up that kind of mix coat, sort of halfway between a trench coat and an overcoat for quite a long while. I've been looking on Pinterest, I've been looking around in the shops, and yeah, I finally kind of set my sights on this pattern because it seemed most similar to the style I was going for. I ended up making a size 8 of this pattern in the end, which is again slightly below my body measurement. So it's a 31.5 inch bust, I'm a 32. 24-inch waist, I'm a 26, and hips were 33.5. But again, based on the finished garment measurements, I thought that the size 8 would suit me the best. So here's my finished coat. I will show you as best as I can with it here on my lap. It's so heavy. I think when I showed this in my video last week, I was up to the kind of shell of the coat and I'd put the sleeves in. So since then, I've put in the front facing, which I can see here. So this is your front facing, so that's kind of the inside of the coat, and it's also what you see when the coat flaps open as a kind of lapel. And then obviously I've put in the lining as well, and then the neck facing here, and the belt as well. So all of that took quite some time. I had quite a long sewing day on Tuesday of this week actually, where I just had the whole school day set out to just make good progress on this coat, because even though I was trying to sew it slowly, I also really wanted to get it done as well, and I could see that I was kind of on the home stretch with just having to do the facing and the lining, so I really wanted to get a move on with that. So I will put in some images of me wearing this coat because, as I say, it's very hard to show you on camera. This is the length of it, this is the lining. The lining is an Atelier Brunette viscose crepe, I think. I'll link it below. And the outer coat fabric is a fabric that I picked up from the Knitting and Stitching show, which I can't find online unfortunately, but it was from Lily Fabrics, and it's a wool, polyester and something else blend, and it's sort of knitted on the back, so it was very nice to work with. It wasn't too stiff at all, and it had a slight stretch to it too, so yeah, it was really easy to sort of fit things like the sleeves. So this is what the sleeves look like with the cuff. It's a kind of fake cuff, and I put the buttons on there, but the lining doesn't have the cuff. The lining just kind of comes to the end. So I actually found this coat really, really nice to sew. It's the first time I've ever dared to use a big 4 pattern for anything as big as a coat. So I was a little bit worried about how I was going to get on with the whole thing, but actually it was absolutely fine. I think if you are going to be making a coat or your first coat pattern, I wouldn't necessarily go for one of the big 4 pattern companies unless you are feeling really confident. I think I found it okay because I've now made, well, this would be my 3rd coat or kind of coat, because I made the jack trench as well. So I kind of knew the process of sort of putting lapels in and putting a collar in and all of that stuff, and the lining. So I kind of knew what the pattern was saying, but I do think that they are obviously more vague than some of the other pattern companies out there, the indie pattern companies. But yeah, I did find this coat a joy to sew really, and I really enjoyed taking my time with it and doing it stage by stage. I think the most difficult part of it in the end was actually putting in the lining, and I always find that. I always feel as though doing the lining is going to be easy, but actually when you come to it, I think when you've got to attach it all, it just gets so heavy, and I was really finding that it was dragging on the ironing board and dragging on the sewing machine, and I was just struggling to keep everything neat just because of how big and heavy it all was. So that was difficult. I always struggle a little bit with putting in the lining and the hem and doing the hem that way, because I never feel as though it turns out very neat, and the hem never feels straight to me. So with this pattern or with this coat, I had initially sewn the hem as they directed, but it was still sitting kind of wonky, so the facings were slightly higher than the actual hem, and I don't know why that was. It's happened to me pretty much every time I've made a coat. It happens on my Merlin coat as well. It took me ages to figure out how to do the hem because that was my first coat. With this one, in the end, what I did was I actually turned it all through to the right side and I pressed it up so that it was straight, and then I just hand sewed the hem or the lining to the coat. So the hem is actually hand sewn in this coat. It is supposed to be partly machine sewn, but as I said, I just felt as though I would get a neater finish doing it that way. The lining is actually hand sewn into the coat cuffs as well, and the pattern does tell you to hand sew that. So I did do that part right. But yeah, that is always a struggle. It's the part that I hate, and it took me ages. The other thing that takes ages with a coat actually, and I would say if you are planning to make a coat, don't scrimp on this part of the process. It's the pressing. So the pressing takes a long while, so definitely consider that if you are planning to make a coat. don't scrimp on the pressing because it really does make such a difference to how your coat is finished. I have a tailor's clapper which I invested in when I made my Merlin coat, so for my first coat, and I really was sort of skeptical about whether or not I needed to buy one because I thought, can it really make that much difference? But yes, it really does make quite a lot of difference actually to press your seams and then use a tailor's clapper. So what a clapper does is it's made of wood, and I think I'm saying this right, it actually sort of absorbs the steam or the heat from what you've just pressed with the iron into the wood, and somehow that sort of makes your seam lie a lot flatter. So I must have spent over an hour yesterday just pressing everything and it just seemed to take forever, but it really did make a big difference in the end. So yeah, that would be another tip that I would give you if you're planning to sew a coat. Yeah, don't scrimp on the pressing, and yeah, do invest in a tailor's clapper, especially if you're going to be using quite a heavyweight wool fabric. So I only finished this coat last night actually and I'm still a little bit obsessed with the hem on it, to be honest. I just can't stop looking at it and wondering if it's straight. And the problem I had with it is that my dress form mannequin thing has been in the loft for ages because I rarely use it, to be honest, unless I'm making something like this that needs to be hemmed properly. So I put it in the loft for a while because it just takes up so much space, and because I don't have a room for sewing things, it was in our bedroom and it was just getting in the way, so I put it in the loft. And I thought, I can't send my husband up to the loft to just get the mannequin out just so that I can hem one coat. I might in the end have to do that because I'm still not sure if the hem is even. But yeah, because it was so difficult to get it all over the table, over the ironing board, and have it all laid out as it needed to be so that I could hem it properly. Where I've kind of hand stitched it up, I wonder if I've just not done it quite level, and it looks to me as if it's pulling a little bit. So I might need to sort that out. I know the lining might drop because it hasn't been that long since I actually finished it. So I'm going to leave it for a while and see what I think. And then I might need to just undo the hem that I've done and have a better go at it. So yeah, I am pleased with this coat. I really do like it. I think I definitely did that thing of it being so much work, and then at the end of it I was just like, oh, I hate it now. And I hung it on the door. I tried it on, and my husband and my daughter both said, oh yeah, it looks really nice and everything, but I was just like, oh, I'm not really sure if it looks nice on me. It looks really big and the shoulders look different and everything. But I know that I do tend to feel that way about things that have been hard work, and that I just sort of try on as soon as I finish. So it definitely needs a little bit of time, this one, and I need to sort of work on how I'm going to be styling it and things like that, and how I'm going to wear it. It feels different to me, that's the thing, because I'm so used to wearing a kind of padded, like casual type raincoat kind of thing. I'm not used to wearing smart coats like this, but I really want to get some good wear out of this, and it's definitely the style that I was going for. It's that sort of boxy masculine style that I wanted for wearing over casual things, so it definitely works with that style. I think I'm just going to have to get used to that style on me, if you know what I mean. So yeah, but I think because I enjoyed the whole process of sewing this so much, even if I don't wear it, which I will, don't worry, but even if I wasn't going to wear it, I've just enjoyed the process of it so much. It's one of those things that I would be happy just to have hanging on the door and to look at it, because I'm definitely happy with how it looks, even if I need to get used to how it looks on me, if that makes sense. Yeah, I really do highly recommend this pattern. I think if you have got some coat sewing experience, you'll be absolutely fine with it. It's very on trend, I think. Don't be put off by the cover image on the pattern. I mean, they definitely could have done a bit of a better styling job with this one, I think. But you always need to look at the line drawings and kind of imagine what you want it to be, I think. But yeah, it's a lovely pattern, and it does have some petite sizing in it as well. So if you are on the smaller size, like I am actually, even though I didn't go for the petite size in the end, it does have that option if you want it. So that is my coat. I do need to take a few photos of it so that you can see it on, and I'm going to work on sort of styling this and wearing it with a few different outfits to see how I'm feeling it as well. But yeah, I'm so pleased to have it finished, and that's the first off of my autumn winter list as well, so it's really nice to tick one of those jobs off. So just 3 sewing makes to share with you this time, but obviously one of those was quite a big one. I need to think about what I need to work on next. It's either going to be my heather blazer or my jeans, I think. I might need a sort of palette cleanser in between starting something big again, but yeah, I think that will probably be next on my list. Let me know actually, what would you prefer me to make next? Either the heather blazer or the Flint jeans by Megan Nielsen, and maybe I can do some kind of content, video content based around either of those makes. Anyway, let's move on to knitting now. So the next sort of finished thing that I have to share with you is my Whitmore cardigan. So this has been a project ongoing since the summertime. I really must start writing down when I start things actually, because I can never remember when I've started them, and therefore I can't work out how long it's actually taken me to finish. It doesn't feel like it's taken me that long actually, but I think I probably started this kind of mid-summer. So I love this pattern so much, and I'm so pleased with how this one has turned out, especially because I did wing some of it a little bit in terms of sizing and the yarn that I was using. So the Whitmore cardigan is by Amy Loudon of Taylor S Studios. It's one of my most favourite knitting patterns ever, I think, and I really like the Whitmore sweater as well. I just love the lace pattern in it, and it's just so enjoyable to knit. So I had already made a pink version of this in a DK weight yarn. I had this Rowan Kid Classic. I'd bought quite a lot of it to make something else, which just didn't work out tension wise, so I gave up on that and thought I would just go back to one of my old favourites and knit the Whitmore cardigan. So because I was using an Aran weight yarn rather than the DK weight recommended, I did need to size up my needles, and I also needed to size down sizing wise. So with the original sort of proper yarn, I made the second size, and with this one I went down to the first size just because I thought it was going to turn out bigger, because obviously I was using bigger needles and a chunkier yarn. So yeah, what to say about this? I just thoroughly enjoyed making this. I really like that it has the sort of balance of interest in having the lace at the yoke, but then once you've done that, you've got the stocking stitch to do. I quite like those kind of patterns. You probably have noticed that if you've been watching me for a while. So with this version, I went for the cropped length, kind of shorter length, and I also went for the bishop sleeve, I think these are called, aren't they? So where they're more sort of gathered at the wrist. So you knit the sleeve straight and then you do all of your decreasing at one bit at the wrist, in one go at the wrist, I should say. So this has been blocked now, and I'm just always amazed at the magic of blocking. So I think when you knit lace, it often can feel quite bumpy when you're finished, and it's just so nice when you soak your project in the end. It's always terrifying, but I think it's always really worthwhile doing. So with this, I obviously referred to the label on the yarn, and it said to wash it, hand wash it in a cool wash. So I ran a cool sort of shallow bath, put a little bit of wool wash in the bath, and I soaked it for 15 minutes. Then I squeezed all the water out and pinned it out on my blocking mats, and I pinned it to the size recommended in the pattern. And I really just tried to sort of pin out the holes in the lace and really get them to lay flat. And it's just so nice now that it's been blocked. It hasn't got that bumpiness at all because all the stitches have been set. It looks nice and flat. It's much more drapier to wear now as well. So when I finished this, the sleeves were not short, but they came to my wrist and they didn't have a lot of sort of poofy gather in the bottom where the bishop sleeve finished, and now it's been blocked. I think the sleeves have definitely grown a little bit in length, and I've got that kind of poofing or pooling or whatever at the wrist, and I really like that. It's so cozy as well. This yarn is really fluffy, really nice and cozy to wear. It'll be very warm for winter time, and I really like the cropped length because the longer length is actually quite long. This comes down to just past my hips or just past my waistband, so it's a really nice length. And you might remember as well that I had the problem where I thought my cast off stitches were going to be too tight and it was pulling in a little bit. So I actually did, before I'd finished the whole project, I did actually try to undo the cast off edge, and I was going to knit the rib again on the bigger needles, but when I came to try and undo the ribbing, it just wasn't going to happen in this yarn. You know, where you've got a fluffy yarn and you're trying to undo and all the sort of fibres are catching together and everything. I thought it was going to do. more harm than good to actually bother to undo it. So in the end, I've just left it, and it's absolutely fine. I think I will wear this open most of all, but if I ever wear it fully done up, I tend to sort of tuck things under anyway so that they sit above the waistband. So I think in a funny sort of way, having the waistband tighter has kind of helped me because it keeps it tucked up underneath my waist, if you know what I mean. I'll put in a picture to kind of show you what I mean. But yeah, I'm thoroughly pleased with this. And I'm glad to have it done. I think if you are a beginner and you want to try a lace pattern for the first time, I think you do need probably a bit of knitting experience. But if you are sort of nervous about knitting lace, then I would recommend this pattern, because what I really love about it is that Amy has written the lace instructions in both chart and written format. So I don't like following charts, I just can't get my head around them. So having all of the written instructions there, it just makes the whole process easier. So every single row is written out. You know exactly what you need to be doing, even when there's a repeat. You're just, you know, it's all written out there for you, so you just need to sit and follow the instructions. I really like that. I'd really like to try another of Taylor Studio patterns actually, so if you do have any to recommend, then let me know down below. But that's that one. I could quite happily just keep knitting these. I think I need to have a go at the sweater at some point too, but yeah, I just find them so enjoyable to make, and I really like wearing them as well. So continuing in knitting, I'd finished my cardigan and I didn't really have anything else to make. I had mentioned I want to make the Rowan cashmere beanie, and I haven't brought the yarn for that still. I had a couple of balls left over from the Whitmore cardigan of the Rowan Kid Classic yarn, so I decided to put those to good use. Had a look in my books and found a nice hat to knit. So even though it was a bit boring going back to the same colour again when I'd only just finished with this grey, I decided to just sort of use up what I had and have a nice quick and easy knitting project to do, which I didn't have to think about too much. So I ended up making this hat pattern. I haven't brought the pattern with me actually, but I'll try and put an image in if I can. But it's from one of the Rowan books. It's got a rib pattern on it, so I think it's 4 stitches knit, 1 purl, but then you kind of alternate it on the row back, so you get this sort of gappy kind of middle row of the rib. Does that make sense? So it looks a little bit different to the sort of traditional rib that you'd normally do. So yeah, I'm happy with this actually. It's a really nice colour. I did actually add a little bit of length to this because, as I'd mentioned in last week's video, I think I'd knit a Rowan hat before and it actually come up quite small or quite short, so I did add a couple of centimetres to this, and it is quite long and nice to wear now, so I'm really pleased that I did that. I was worried that I'd added too much, but actually when I put it on it was fine. This pom-pom is one that I got from the Knitting and Stitching show from Black Sheep Yarns, I think they're called. They had these lovely fake fur pom-poms at the Knitting and Stitching show last year, I think, so I got a couple and I wish I got more because they're just the right size and they're so lovely and soft, and I thought this white one suited this nicely. So that's all finished and done, and I'm glad to have another hat in my collection. I think next I'm gonna order the yarn for that other cashmere hat, suck it up and pay my £30 and hopefully get a nice cashmere hat out of it to go with my nice new coat. So that's probably going to be my next knitting project, but I do love a hat. They're always really nice to knit, aren't they? So on to crochet then, and another project that I've had in the making for quite some time now is this blanket. So this was made, when did I start this? I wish I could remember. I think this was another sort of beginning of the summer project actually. So it's not taken me too long, but it is a very chunky yarn, and it grew very quickly. So this is just a really simple granny square blanket. I've started from the middle and got outwards and used this kind of colour fade chunky yarn which I got from Hobbycraft. I'll put a picture in here, and this was just lovely to do. I absolutely love crocheting granny square blankets. I just think they're so calming to do. And I think if you are someone that knits or crochets, you'll probably know what I mean, where I just sometimes need my hands to be busy if we're sitting watching something. I don't necessarily want to concentrate too much on anything, but I do find that if my hands are busy, then I tend to relax more. I'm sure you get what I mean if you are similar to me or strange like me. But yeah, I think it really helps with anxiety as well. And yeah, it's just such a lovely thing to do. If you do suffer from anxiety or anything like that, then definitely take up knitting or crochet, because I think it's just so helpful, and I could probably talk about that for ages, but I won't. So yeah, not a lot to say about this really. It's quite big. I'll hold it like that. You can't see me. But I just love how this colour fade yarn works. So it all just kind of knits up from the same ball, and obviously you get this stripe or colour fading, whatever you call it, multicoloured ball of wool. And it just looks so nice, and I think it works really well because you can see the sort of square in the middle. It's kind of working well with the colours, if that makes sense, and I feel really pleased with how it's turned out. So an annoying thing happened when I was making this. I wanted to put this scalloped edge around the edge of the blanket, so I was kind of on what I thought was my last ball of wool, and I was kind of trying to judge it so that I had enough wool left to do the scallops at the end, because these take quite a lot of stitches each scallop, so they take up quite a lot of wool. So I kind of finished in time so that I could do that scalloped edge, thinking that I was on my last ball of wool. And then when I'd finished the whole blanket, I realised, or I looked in my basket of wool and realised that I had a whole other ball of wool that I'd brought recently. And I remember buying it now actually and thinking I probably just need one more ball for the rest of that blanket, but I'd completely forgotten that I brought it. So that was in the basket, and I could have actually carried on with the last ball of wool and made this bigger. I mean, it's fine as it is, it's big enough, but it could have been even bigger, and I could have used up all the yarn, because now I have this ball of wool left over and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it. If I can find the receipt, I might actually try and take it back to Hobbycraft, because I do think they take yarn that's left over that you haven't used. But yeah, that's that one. I think because I just love doing this so much, I'm going to get some more wool and just sit and do another one, because I think you can't ever have too many blankets really, can you? This wool does come in lots of different colours actually, so if you don't like the blue, there are lots of other kind of colour fade options that you can choose from too. And then lastly, in crochet, I also made myself this little basket. So this was a lovely kit that I picked up from the Knitting and Stitching show back in October. It's from a lovely small business called The Left Hookery, and they had a beautiful stand on the Knitting and Stitching show, sort of full of different rope baskets that you could crochet. So because I'm not very confident on anything other than sort of granny squares and double crochet stitches, I went for the easiest or the smallest basket. It's crocheted with kind of rope rather than yarn, I would say. I don't really know exactly what it is, but it's recycled cotton yarn, so it's quite sort of environmentally friendly. Can't think of the word, but you know what I mean, sustainable. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So it comes in a kit, and you get your yarn, your crochet hook, a stitch marker, and this little label here. And I just sat and did this one afternoon in half term, I think, and got it all done in a couple of hours, and it was so nice to do. It's quite difficult when you get going because it starts with a circle like this, and when you're at your tiniest circle, it's quite difficult to sort of get your hook in and work with the chunky yarn, but once you get going, it's quite easy and it's really nice to do. And then you kind of form your shaping here, and then you work upwards. So you're just kind of going round and round doing double crochet stitches really, and it's really easy and very therapeutic, and I need to make lots more of these really. You can make these in a different stitch called waistcoat stitch, which I didn't try because I wasn't brave enough, but if I do make another one, I might give that stitch a go. So I mentioned that my mum got a kit as well when we were at the show, and she got one of the bigger baskets, and I'll put a picture of hers in here too because she finished hers very quickly. And she made one of the bigger baskets, and I think she's going to keep wool and stuff in, and hers was made from a different stitch, and that looks really nice too. So I think eventually we're probably going to swap patterns, and I'll have a go at her one and she'll have a go at this little one. So yeah, well, obviously once you've got the pattern, you can kind of make these to your heart's content. Yeah, I will definitely be making more of these. They're really good for bedroom storage as well, I think. So I think I might make a few for my daughter's bedroom. So yeah, super pleased with that little project. And yeah, if you're a beginner crocheter, I think it would suit you really well. I think you maybe need to know a couple of stitches, but if you know how to do single and double crochets, then you'll be absolutely fine, because even though I have crocheted quite a few things, I'd still consider myself quite a beginner in terms of different stitches and things like that. So yeah, it was a really nice project to do, and I think for this one I'm going to try and find a little plant that I can put in it and put in our living room, in our front room, and I think that would look really nice. So that was my last project of the last few weeks. So thank you for watching, everyone. I really hope that you like what I've been making over the last few weeks. Let me know in the comments what you've been making too, because I'd love to know. I feel as though it's been really nice to have a mixture of things on the go actually. I really enjoy kind of switching between knitting and crochet. I can have one of each on the go and just see what I feel like doing in the evening. If I want to do something mindless, then I'll just do some crochet. If I want something a bit more complicated, then I'll do some knitting and things like that. And also with my sewing, I think it's been similar. Obviously I've had the coat on the go, but in between I was finishing this blouse and doing my Agnes top. And even though I'm normally a one project kind of person, it's actually been quite nice to have a few different things on the go and be able to switch between them. I think sometimes you need that. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd love you to consider subscribing. And if you do watch regularly and you haven't subscribed yet, can I urge you to do so? I would really like to have you as a subscriber. Don't forget you can also click the notification bell too, so that you don't miss out on any other videos that I put out. If you have enjoyed the video, then please do give it a like as well. Take care everyone, have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll look forward to seeing you in another video soon. Bye.